Once upon a time there lived an unhappy young girl. Unhappy she was, for her mother was dead, her father had married another woman, a widow with 2 daughters, and her stepmother didn't like her one bit. The story The Little Glass Slipper, also known as Cinderella, was first written by French Charles Perrault in 1997. Cinderella is considered the leader of Disney princesses, often being positioned in the center of publicity photos.
Cinderella, the protagonist, is the main character in the fairy tale, and she is therefore the one who is the focus of the fairy tale. Throughout the story, she has one promise she wants to hold: to honor her dead mother, and to be good and devout, because then it will all be okay at the end. One example of her honoring her mother is when she's offered a gift from her father of her own choice. And I quote, Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave and planted the branch on it, and she wept so much that her tears fell upon it and watered it. It grew and became a beautiful tree. Cinderella spent her opportunity for a gift to herself on her mother, and honored her by growing a tree to remember her. An example of her being devout is when she is near her evil stepmother and stepsisters. They treat her like a kitchen maid, and I quote, "Out with this kitchen maid." Cinderella keeps her promise by being kind, because she tolerates the treatment she gets from them. Even though Cinderella doesn't really do much to be treated differently, her quest could be to get away from her stepmother and stepsisters while still honoring her mother by being good and devout. As mentioned, she doesn't really do anything to change her circumstances. But there is one thing where you could say that she changes it. It is when she goes to the big ball, despite her stepmother demanded her not to. Cinderella had done everything her stepmother had asked her to do, so she still kept her promise to her mother.
The writer uses omniscient limit point of view as Brothers Grimm disappear into the characters of the story and tells the story from their point of view. The setting of Cinderella is a faraway kingdom which takes place at Cinderella's home and at the ballroom. The story occurred many years ago. The language of Cinderella is generally very old-fashioned. We see that in this quote, "Father, break off for me the first twig that brushes against your hat on your way home." The glass slipper is a symbol of graciousness because she could walk with them without shattering them. It was small and dainty and pure of gold.
The introduction of the plot is, there was a young girl named Cinderella. After her mother passed away, her father got married again, but her stepmother and stepsisters always irritated her. Incentive moment, when Cinderella's mother passed away and her father got married again. Complications, her stepmother and stepsisters treated her like a slave. Her stepmother and stepsisters didn't allow her to go to the ball, but her animal friends helped her get away anyway. Climax, when the evening came and Cinderella escaped from the king's son so quickly that he couldn't follow her, and it caused the loss of Cinderella's left slipper. Denouement, when Cinderella tried the golden shoe and her foot fitted perfectly. Conclusion, Cinderella got married to the king's son, and they lived happily ever after. There are many contrasts in this fairy tale. Basically, the enormous contrast is Cinderella versus her stepsisters. Cinderella is good, they are evil. Cinderella is a hardworking and thoughtful girl. They are nothing but spoiled brats who think only of themselves. It's easy to identify with our main character, Cinderella. We have all found ourselves in a rather difficult or extremely crappy situation in life. Also, when Cinderella decides to go to the ball, even though she knows that she's not supposed to, is an easy thing to relate to, especially in our younger years. The human temptation wanting to do something that we know is wrong. At times, knowing that it's wrong makes us want to do it even more. And when finally Cinderella gets the love of her life and turns into the princess that she is, it shows the fact that just one person can change your life just like that, which is probably the most identifying fact of the matter. The setting itself is a fantasy trade, with the opening once upon a time and the ending and they lived happily ever after. Storylines often revolve around a battle between good and evil, and the fantasy genre normally concludes with the defeat of the antagonist. The protagonist often possesses a magical ability that helps her in triumphing over evil, in which this fairy tale draws a great match to the fantasy genre, with Cinderella being the good and the protagonist, defeating her evil stepsisters, who are the antagonists, by using magic.
In almost every fairy tale or story there is a message. In Cinderella, the message could be that life can suck at some times, but it will get better. You might not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it is there. Another message could be that you should not always be okay with the same treatment that Cinderella got from her stepmothers and stepsisters. It's okay to say no and do something for yourself. It might bring you happiness. Another message could be that marriage is all. It is the supreme achievement of life.
To compare the text with another, we have chosen Snow White. In many ways, Cinderella and Snow White are very similar, from their personality to their life story. For one thing, they both have these evil stepmothers that they think they are just so pretty and think too much of themselves. Plus, they make them do all of the work around the house and treat them like nothing. Also, both of them have one parent who died. They're also both wearing blue when you see them in the pictures, and especially in Disney pictures. Another thing is that they both have animal friends that they help out and get help from them in return. Of course, they are both princesses and have a happily ever after. They also end up both running